templates and zip forms. The top of the screen, you'll select Templates. New, you'll select the template category. In this case, I'm creating a template so that I am able to represent a landlord. From here, you can title the template. It would be a residential property. And at the bottom, you'll select Save. Once the template folder is created, it'll take you to the next screen to add your forms. In the top right-hand corner, you select All Forms. Select Library to make sure that the All option is pre-selected. And then this third line, that All is selected as well. The first document that you want to add is your cover sheet. The cover sheet allows you to input your own brokerage information along with the landlord information when you start a transaction. Then your IABS. You can type in keywords, or if you know the number, then you can type that in as well. From here, you'll want to go down. There are two information about brokerage services options. The first one, if you hover over it, it shows that it's for a buyer tenant. Since I'm creating a template for a landlord, I want to hover over the second one. I click it and it'll be added to my template. You'll continue following this process by adding the forms for a lease. So you have the residential lease property data input form. This helps you when you start your lease listing. There are several forms that you can go through, but again, if you know the forms that you're going to be using, then you can type in the full description or the number. We want to add the residential listing exclusive right to lease. We want to have a listing agreement with our landlord. You want to upload the lease itself, because once you have an applicant and the landlord wants to move forward, then you have the lease to fill in. You also want to add a lease amendment, so if there's any changes. There's lease inventory and conditions. And then for this template, I also load a lease for multifamily. So if I were to do a multifamily lease, I have that form available. That's how easy it is to start a template and load the forms. Your next step in your template is to select the cover sheet. This is a transaction cover sheet in regards to a landlord, representing a landlord. So you would scroll down. You're going to be the listing broker. So you would fill in the appropriate information for our brokerage, the address, and you continue filling out the document, putting your name as the listing agent, your number, email address, and your sales ID. You'll also want to fill in the brokerage ID and our broker's sales ID. That'll be seen in a separate video. Enter the landlord's information, their address, all their contact information, and their marital status. If there's a second landlord that will be on the lease, you'll add their information into the seller number 2 name or the landlord number 2. You'll select Save. You'll go back. Then you can go into your IABS, ensure that the information at the bottom is filled in appropriately. Most of the time when you fill the cover sheet in with the appropriate information, it'll auto-populate into the other forms. In the event something's missing, then you can type it in as well. Once you filled in the form, you'll select Save and go back. You'll complete those steps with all of the different forms to ensure that things that will not change are auto-populated, or that you have auto-saved into the form itself. So when you start a transaction, you're not filling in all of that same information. So once you've completed your template, you've got it ready to add. So here you would just go ahead and select back to the list. This takes you back to your template list. Now if I wanted to start a transaction, I would go back to my dashboard. I would select New Transaction and then select the appropriate template that I wanted to use for the transaction, whether I represent a seller, a buyer, a landlord, or a tenant. If I were going to select and represent a buyer, then of course I would select New Purchase or Offer. I would type in my buyer's name. I'm selecting a residential template. I scroll to the bottom and I click the drop-down option for my templates. I would select the buyer template and save. The pre-existing forms that were in my template will now be uploaded for this transaction. I can now open up the cover sheet, enter my buyer's information. If I don't have a MLS at this point, then you can move to the next step. You can move to the parties, add your buyer and seller. You can go to your documents, and like I said, this is preloaded information. You can click on your cover sheet, enter in all your buyer's information at the top of the form, select Save, go back, and then continue to fill in the buyer appropriate information into your IBS, general information, your buyer rep agreement, and so forth and so on. That's how easy it is to add a template, add the forms, and start a transaction. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tutorial on zip forms. Have a great day.